Hi everybody, it's good to be here and it's just such a fantastic festival. I'm really thrilled to be here. I didn't know it was going to be as anything like this. I had no idea. So as you can see, my presentation's about saving the world one butterfly at a time. There's 20,000 species of butterfly around the world. But as you can see, as you probably know, New Zealand doesn't have many varieties at all. Put your hands up if you don't know this butterfly. Don't call out, please. Some of you don't know it. This butterfly is only found in New Zealand. And it's all up and down the country, but it's disappearing. It's New Zealand's red admiral butterfly, kahukura. And nobody much knows it exists. So we think we should be looking after the ones we do have. What do you think? Do you agree with that principle? Butterflies are not only lovely, I think everybody loves butterflies, but they are so important because they have these big things attached to their little bodies that say, I'm a butterfly. And as they fly around, they inspire children to observe and develop a sense of curiosity. Now, I'm not an entomologist. I was a girl hundreds of years ago, and my father said to me, you're a girl, you don't go to university, you're not allowed to. So I'm a frustrated entomologist, maybe. But I have two children. Chris, as you can see in that photo there, is now 51. And when he was about 8, I think it was, this magazine came into our care because as a mother, most mothers in those days planted a swan plant to teach their children about monarch butterflies. And we all had nature tables in our classrooms, so somebody every summer would bring a caterpillar along or a chrysalis along, and the teacher would teach what they knew about monarch butterflies. But there wasn't a lot of information, and when Chris was little, this is before the internet. Isn't that an amazing thing to think about? There was no internet, no even computers at that time. So we raised a swan plant and raised monarch butterflies, and Christopher learned so much. And he read this article. It was published in 1986, and the monarch butterflies migration, which the Americans and Canadians had been studying for many, many years, tagging monarch butterflies. They still didn't know where they were until two people went to Mexico and found the overwintering sites. And I've got some video footage later I'll share with you. So that was the first time they actually knew where the monarch butterflies overwintered in North America. And Christopher said to me, where do they go to in New Zealand? Well, we went to the library, couldn't find out. So I said to him, he hated letter writing. And I said to him, look, why don't you write a letter to the editor of the New Zealand Herald and the Auckland Star, which he did. They published his letters. They also came and interviewed Christopher, put his photo in the paper, as you can see, both papers actually, and we started getting mail from people all over New Zealand. Do you know what mail is? M-A-I-L? You remember that? Well, our letterbox had about this many letters in it every day from wonderful people all over New Zealand telling us where we could see monarchs overwintering. And one of the places was Butterfly Bay. So we went up there. It's out from Kaio. An amazing thing to see in the winter in those days. That was in August. Christopher then got interviewed on the radio, TV, and one of the radio people, can't think of his name, sorry, he said to Christopher, why don't you start up a club for all these people that love monarch butterflies? And I can still hear today Christopher saying, oh, I think that's a very good idea. So I had a memory typewriter, and he would type in Dear Paddy, and then press the button, and this daisy wheel would go backwards and forwards and write out the same letter. He would attach 2 seeds of the swan plant to the letter, fold it up, put it in an envelope, take it up the post office, and it was really good education for him. But after 2 weeks, he wanted to study jet planes. So somebody had to take over this mantle of answering all these beautiful letters, and that's how I became the butterfly lady. So in New Zealand, actually, nobody knows exactly how many species we have. George Gibbs wrote this amazing book in 1980 with all of his knowledge in there, and he said I think there were 17 or 18 species, but some of them are immigrants or migrants. They come here every summer on winds from Australia. So I think there's probably 14 or 15 species of butterfly that we do have in New Zealand. But Brian Patrick wrote another book in 2012, and he thinks that there are many more than that. For example, the coppers, George says there's 4 species, but Brian thinks it could be 20 or more species. And so all the coppers need a plant called Muehlenbeckia growing for them to make a habitat. And they don't travel very far. So if you have Muehlenbeckia here, and if you plant Muehlenbeckia, then you're going to have to translocate the butterflies to that new reserve. But if you go to the riverbeds, you'll probably see boulder coppers or some of the other coppers. That's another species of Muehlenbeckia. That's a very weedy one. It takes over planting, so it's great to put where you want to actually encourage something to cover your banks or where you've got pest plants. So there's the common copper. This is what we do know. There's the boulder copper, Roper's copper, sorry. I'm trying to pronounce things properly these days. I'm improving. Very interesting, I think, because Te Raupara was a really noted Māori warrior, and he had battles and past sites between Kawhia and Kaiapoi, not far from here, and this is where that butterfly is found. So I don't know who made the connection, but that's how it's been named, Raupara's copper. And then there's the glade copper. So as I say, we don't know how many species there are, but actually the Butterflies Trust is doing a big project. It's a multi-million-dollar project. We're always raising funds for this project to find out exactly how many species there are. And today it involves DNA analysis. So it's quite amazing because Robert Hoare, who's our scientist working on it, he can take the tiniest piece of a butterfly's foot from museum specimens, and that has enough DNA there to analyse where that butterfly came from. I think that's quite incredible. So we're not rushing out there and killing all the butterflies. Then, of course, I'm sure you all know this one. Globally, it's called the small white, but we tend to call it the cabbage white in New Zealand. And, of course, it breeds on brassicas. Hands up those who are growing brassicas like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and a few other plants. Here are some ways you can learn to love the cabbage white. Number 1, they're meant to be winter vegetables. So don't try and grow them in the summer, because it's the summer when the cabbage white butterfly will lay her eggs on your brassicas. Another good trick is to make your brassica plants smell different, because the female cabbage white will be smelling your plants. So if you've got a cabbage patch here and you've got other plants over there, she will hone in on that. So let her hone in on the neighbour's vegetable patch. I suggest you plant your cabbages quite separate from garlic, rhubarb, other plants that you want to grow. Don't grow them all in neat lines, because that's where you'll find the cabbage white butterfly. And you make them smell different. So you can use old leaves, nettle, rhubarb, anything really, garlic, and make a tea and spray that onto your plants, and they don't smell like brassicas. Also, if you don't mind the butterfly flying around, plant some nasturtiums somewhere, and of course that is another plant that the cabbage white will lay her eggs on. So that's a few little tricks you can learn to love the cabbage white. Then these whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Then there's our yellow admiral, which we share with Australia, and we're not sure if it still gets blown over here, but certainly it's flying around. And our beautiful red admiral species, which is only found in New Zealand. Now, somebody's put their hand up once and said, but we've got it in England, but they haven't. They've got another red admiral, and there's another one in India as well, and they're not half as beautiful as ours. There's a world-famous lepidopterist. They study butterflies and moths, and he says ours is the best in the world, and I think it is too. It's got the crimson of the Pahutakawa, and big blue eye spots remind me of Pawa. So it's definitely the best one in the world. In the wild, it breeds on Aotearoa ferox or onga onga, and that's not a nice plant to have in your garden because it has actually killed one man. He got so many stings. But you can actually raise it on any of the other nettles, which are, of course, quite handy in your garden. There's 3 photos here of Aotearoa ferox, and you can see the nasty-looking spines on the leaves. And the man there is holding Aotearoa australis, which comes from Southland and the Chatham Islands. It has lovely big leaves. So that's our preferred host plant for the admirals in our breeding program. We have a project called the Red Admiral Project. 20 years ago, Auckland had a problem with a painted apple moth. And in those days, what they decided to do was they got a top dressing, or it was actually a Air Force plane, and they top dressed all of Auckland with a pesticide which is called BT. It's actually a naturally occurring disease of caterpillars to eradicate that painted apple moth. And sadly, while a lot of the insect life came back into Auckland, the Red Admiral project, the Red Admirals disappeared. The monarchs came back, cabbage whites and everything. So we're actually working on a project now to reintroduce it to Auckland. And the project has been so successful that we're now expanding it to the rest of New Zealand. So if you'd like Red Admirals in your garden, find out more on our website, and we'd love to have you join us. There is another admiral species called the Honshu White Admiral. It comes from Honshu, Japan, and this was introduced to New Zealand as a biocontrol for a really bad pest weed, which is rather lovely in its way if you don't have a lot of it, Japanese honeysuckle. And it lays its little caterpillars on the tips of Japanese honeysuckle leaves, and the caterpillars eat the leaves. Sadly, it hasn't been successful because it doesn't eat very much. You know, if you've been around monarchs, you've seen them go gob, 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 and they've eaten a whole plant within minutes. But the Honshu White Admiral doesn't have a long-term effect on the Japanese honeysuckle. Then we have 3 species of blue butterflies in New Zealand. We have the common blue, which you see in clover and clover, and the name's gone, but another member of the pea family. We have the long-tailed blue, which also uses the same plants, and you can see its little tail there on the bottoms of its wings. That was it. It came into New Zealand naturally, I think, about 10, 20 years ago. And then there's the southern blue, which is endemic to New Zealand and is struggling against the other 2 blue species, sadly. But it is found on the coast going down the South Island and around the bottom of the South Island. So that one there breeds on a plant family called Carmichaelia, with rather beautiful blue flowers. So it's a really good plant to plant. Carmichaelia muritai, if you're looking to plant that in your habitat. Then there's a couple of day-flying moths you might come across. Magpie moth, which breeds on ragwort and cineraria, and groundsel, groundsel's a little weed which you might see on your property. So look out for those little caterpillars. They're called woolly bears. Well, we call them woolly bears. They don't know that though. And the cinnabar moth, which is really gorgeous, that was introduced about 100 years ago into New Zealand as a biocontrol. It's here to reduce ragwort, and I think the reason why it's not having a great effect, although it's had a great season this last summer, lots of people sending their photos in to us and telling us, asking for us what is this butterfly, which it's a moth actually. And so we're seeing lots of photos of it this summer. I think the reason why it hasn't had a great success rate is because a lot of farmers are still spraying the ragwort. If only they could just take the flowers off the ragwort wouldn't spread, but the caterpillars would survive and become a more effective biocontrol. But some farmers will go out there and spray everything with pesticide. We have some amazing butterflies. This is one very special one, forest ringlet, and it's found in the mountains like the Denniston Plateau. Another reason why we should be protesting against a mine in the Denniston Plateau, and also parts of Coromandel. So it's a forest dweller, and it's in serious decline. Numbers are in serious decline. So here's some photos of it, which are not my photos. I wish I could go and see it, but those are the eggs on Garnia. This is what the caterpillar looks like. So it merges into the grass-like leaves of Garnia. This is what you call a pre-pupa or jay, and the chrysalis or pupa, and the beautiful butterfly. Isn't that amazing? It's also called the silver streak and Helm's butterfly. So New Zealand is butterfly poor, but we've got so many moths. 2,000 moths was the latest figure I've been told, and there are some species still not identified. So I think it's important that we look after them and respect them. All butterflies need nectar and host plant. Now, of course, if you want to have monarchs in your garden, you plant a swan plant, or we're using the word these days milkweed. But they also need lots of flowers, so they'll come to your garden, the females will come to your garden looking for nectar. And the males tend to hang around. Do you remember teddy boys? No, you're too young. Teddy boys and milk bars. Teddy boys used to hang around the milk bars because they knew the girls would come there. And so it's like that with butterflies too. The males hang around and they fly around the flowers, they dip into the nectar, and then they just keep waiting, and eventually a female comes to lay her eggs. They will tow her up into the trees, stay linked to her, connected to her for 24 hours, while the male transfers sperm over to the female, and then release her, and she will lay some more eggs and then go off. She can smell a milkweed from 2 kilometres away. And it's like that for all butterflies, except, we've got a cabbage white come to visit us here. It's like that for all butterflies, except not all of them fly as far as a monarch does. So the coppers tend to stay in their own little habitat. So until this year, I wasn't thinking about our native plants so much, but then I was told that Moths has a relationship with 45 species of butterflies and moths. So 44 of those would be moths. So that's another thing to think about when you're planting Moths. Hebes, 41. 41 moths depend on Hebes, or now they're referred to as Veronica. And Illyria, 31 moths. So it's quite a good reason. I think over the last 20 years we've seen people really getting out there, and reforestation is a big name. It probably wasn't around 20, 30 years ago, but people are planting because it's the thing to do, planting native bush, protecting their waterways, but you don't always think about the interaction with other insects and other life. Bird life, possibly, because New Zealand's very big on their birds, But now we're beginning to think about insects, and of course, because I'm talking about butterflies and moths, that's my main focus, but there are other insects as well. So remember, Muehlenbeckia is the host for copper butterflies, and 40 other moths use it as a host plant. Hebes again, Hebes are known as Veronica, and 41 moths use the hebe. Now, we were going down to Queenstown to do lots of talks last spring, and I said we would give everybody wildflower seeds. And then I had a thought. I love this view. This is what I would love my garden to look like. Lots of wildflowers. And so I went to the seed suppliers like Egmont Seeds and said, what have you got? And then I was looking at them and I thought, oh my God, this is a pest plant, some of them, like the lupins. And here they are selling pest plants in wildflower seeds, and I thought that's crazy. So we can't do that as a responsible charity. So I started asking for more and sorted out the seeds that they did have on offer so I could make a safe mix to sell for butterfly farmers. This is what wildflowers look like in New Zealand. This is a typical wildflower landscape, and you can see it's all grasses. That's the Central Otago. So we didn't want to sell that sort of seed to people, but these are the sort of problems our introduced plants have caused, and this is around the Lake District, should we call it the Lake District, Central Otago. And of course, as plants, we've got a really bad problem with agapanthus in Auckland, and people pull it out and try and get all the roots out and put it on their trailers, and then as the trailer bounces off to the, used to be called the dump, the plant would fall off, and then it's growing in the ditches and things beside the road, and I'm sure that's happening other places as well. So we've put together a mix that won't cause those problems, and we also cover that in our Create Butterfly habitat online. So these are the challenges that our butterflies face: development, loss of wild spaces, the use of pesticides, but the main problem for our New Zealand species is the lack of awareness, because, you know, people just used to come to me, and garden clubs will still phone me and say, would I come and talk about the monarch butterfly? And I say, yes, I'd love to come and talk about our butterflies and moths. So when I get to the club, I'm introduced, this is Jacqui, she's come to talk to us all about the monarch butterfly. And I'm happy to talk about our butterflies and moths. And by the end of it, I have people coming up to me and saying, I'd love to plant some stinging nettle somewhere. Where can I get a plant from? We sell the plants. We don't sell the pest species. We sell native nettle plants. We sell native nettle seeds as well. People say, oh, we were going to pull out that Muehlenbeckia because it's such a pest. Now we realise its importance. So I'm just going to go, how am I going for time? Heaps of time? Good. I'm going to go through typical metamorphosis, which you might have learnt at school, but feel free to put your hands up if you want to ask any questions, because I'm sure most of you already know about this. So butterflies start out their life as eggs. Out of the egg comes a caterpillar, or larva if you want to be scientific. The caterpillar with a butterfly becomes a chrysalis. With a moth it becomes a cocoon, and then out of those come the adult butterfly. So the monarch egg starts out, this is a slight exaggeration of what it looks like, so 220 times or 300 times, and I think it looks like the beehive in Wellington. Who would agree with that? And they're usually laid on the underside of leaves, and out comes the caterpillar 5 days later. It looks about the same length as one of my eyelashes. And at first it eats its eggshell because there's valuable nutrients in it, similar to a cow actually eating the afterbirth. Two things: it's got the nutrients the cow needs, and also it destroys the evidence, if there were coyotes and foxes and things, that the calf was born there. So it eats the eggshell and then starts eating leaves. And over the next 2 weeks, it goes from that size to about the size of my little finger. 5 times it needs to remove its shell, its skin, so it goes away from the plant, sheds its skin, eats its skin, and then it comes back to the plant. A lot of children see, and I must admit I used to do this too. Oh, you poor little caterpillar. And I pick it up and I take it back to the plant. And then somebody said to me, you shouldn't be doing that because it knows what it's doing. We think we know better than the caterpillar. But no, they would go away from the plant because they know that's where the predators and parasites are going to be looking for it. And then eventually it will come back to the plant. So then when it's eaten enough, after a couple of weeks, it is going to make a chrysalis. And so it spins, it's actually head down in that slide there, and it's spun silk with its spinneret at the top, then it turns around and puts its tail legs into that, and it becomes what we call a jay or pre-pupa. And then eventually it starts shedding its skin. Can you see how down the bottom now it's shedding its skin? And that's one of the things that tells me it's a butterfly. So when the skin's gone, we've got a chrysalis, and you can already make out the parts of the butterfly there. And I think this is one of the most amazing things when I think about it. That teeny tiny egg, which the female monarch laid, it had all the right messages in there, all the right cells to make a butterfly. And yesterday this was a caterpillar eating green leaves, and already those cells were working out which ones were going to become parts of the butterfly. Isn't that amazing? And then so it sheds its skin, and it does a little sort of wiggly dance to drop the skin to the ground, and then the parts, you can see the wing buds there in those photos, and then it smooths out and becomes a chrysalis. Somebody always asks me, what are those gold dots for? There's 2 stories. The scientific one at the moment is that is how the chrysalis breathes while it's changing. But I prefer to tell a little story to children that if nobody really knows what they're for at this point in time, and that if they continue reading, one day they might go to university, become an entomologist, and then one day they'll come and knock on my door and tell me the answer, the secret to the gold dots. I think that's a much better story, don't you? I see the eyes of these children light up, and even the children sitting around them thinking, oh, yes, that could be me. So the chrysalis over the next few days changes colour, and you can see the cuticle on the outside there, and there's a flap to the left of that picture, a long flap, and out comes the butterfly. You can see the flap there better. So everything's changed inside to become the butterfly, and it's a bit like a parachute all folded up, and over the next few hours that butterfly's got to pump all the liquid in its abdomen. You can see the abdomen's quite extended. It's got to pump that into their wings, and the monarch will find a mate and continue the process. Okay, let's see who's asleep. Who thinks that's a male monarch butterfly? Hands up, please. Who thinks it's a female monarch butterfly? Okay, so who's asleep? Everybody else. I hope I'm not boring you. That's actually a male. The females, monarchs, this is only the monarchs, they have broad black veins on their wings, and the males have 2 distinctive spots on their hind wings. So that's how you can tell the difference between a male and female monarch butterfly. With other butterflies and other moths, you've got to sit down and get good glasses on or a magnifying glass and look at their reproductive parts. Something I'm not so good at doing, but some people are. The monarch has an amazing story. Right now it's February and the monarchs are all down. Sorry, let's go back a step. You can see the Rocky Mountains down the North America. Left of those, the yellow, takes you to California and some other states, Washington. Right of that, we tend to say that's mainland eastern population. So the eastern population right now is down in Mexico, and I'm going to show you some footage shortly. Around about now, they're beginning to sense that spring is coming to North America, and they will begin their migration north. Now, there's concerns this year because the numbers of monarchs have been larger this year, which is a good sign, but they don't usually leave until March. But with the climate change and other things, they're sensing it's time to go now. The concern is that further north, the milkweed hasn't come through and they will want to breed. There may not be any nectar flowers for them. So this is a concern for the scientists over there at the moment. So the monarchs will fly north and they should start reproducing north of Mexico and in Texas. Then a month later, those eggs have become butterflies and they continue the migration north. By the end of the summer, they're all around the Great Lakes up there in Canada, and they sense winter's coming and they migrate to Mexico. Some of them might not survive that journey. There's a tremendous incidence of Roundup being sprayed on maize, soybeans and other crops, and the milkweed gets killed because farmers over there don't want milkweed on the edge of their properties. They want to grow a cash crop. So not all of them make it. There's sprays, there's other problems as well. But the ones that do will arrive in Mexico where they smother the trees. I hope this video is going to work. Do you know how I play that video? Oh yeah, great. This is some video I shot a few years ago now at Aotearoa, which is one of their overwintering habitats. And again, we just got off our horses to watch. These guys are flying down the track to go and find nectar to top up their reserves before it gets cooler at the end of the day and they go back to the trees to overwinter again. So this is a big concern over in North America because they are concerned that the monarch butterfly is dying out. Definitely the migration is being badly affected over there. You might read about it in the newspapers and things. And we are losing our monarch butterfly here as well. I get more and more emails with the monarch butterfly, sorry, it's the Moths and Butterflies Trust now. Everyone contacts me. I get emails, I get messages on Facebook. Everyone is concerned about our monarch butterflies. And the thing is that if it's affecting our monarch butterflies, it's also affecting our native species. So it's not just lack of resources, but the big thing is the 5 species of introduced wasps that have come into this country. Vespular species and Pollistes, the paper wasps. They are a huge concern. We did a survey 3 or 4 months ago, and people are even reporting they're killing wetters, they're eating wetters, and they're eating baby birds in their nests. So those are some of the concerns. One of the projects we're working on is, sorry, wrong way, is we tag monarch butterflies. We put these little numbered stickers on them, and people up and down the country are tagging our monarch butterflies now. Doesn't hurt the butterflies at all. The tag would weigh as much as this remote does to me, and people apply them very carefully. Then they go online and put the data and everything into the website, and then people, surprisingly, like this person here, found this one in Napier. It had left fielding 3 weeks earlier, and it wouldn't have flown over the Ruahine range because that's too high and there's no nectar up there. So it would have flown probably through the Manawatu Gorge and then up to Napier, where it had come into a warmer climate and started laying eggs. So that was very exciting last year. As I say, we've done research on the pest wasps, and you can read about that on our website. We're working on the Red Admiral project, and we would love it if you'd help us. There are different ways you can help us. You can share about what we are doing to your friends, and I'm always interested in going and speaking to people. You can look up our website. You can buy products on our shop, like seeds for the benefit of butterflies and moths and other pollinators as well. You can volunteer at your projects. You can plant seeds. So I do have a few copies of our magazine here, which I'll share with you. And if you miss out on the magazine, you're very welcome to get in touch with me, and I'll send you a digital version. Alec, would you mind passing that box up to me, please? Thank you. So I'll pass these around if somebody would help me there. Thank you, Alec. Now put your hand up if you'd like one. There's probably 20 copies there. And I'm happy to answer questions. Wave your hand if you've got a question. Yes, man in the blue shirt.
You mentioned about not planting brassicas in the summer because that's what the white butterfly is going to be attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of time of year then would you be expecting that you think is a good time to start setting them outside?
Well, the female cabbage white will come and lay eggs in the spring. So that's when you'll find you've got eggs on or caterpillars after that on your brassicas. No, I don't think so. No, you should be safe now. After all, brassicas are really a winter vegetable. Yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a second point, in terms of like what you're talking about pest wasps, surely there's a biocontrol for them?
Sadly, there's not. The Vespular species, you can buy a poison called Vespex, and you can treat. Now, Vespular species make nests in the ground or in caves or in wall linings. Paper wasps, the Pollinators ones, there's 3 of them, they make paper wasp nests in the ceilings, under eaves, that sort of a place. And I've just discovered one in my son's hedge. So what you have to do with those is go out at night when the wasps are all inside the nest asleep, and you can spray them, or you can just very quickly, I put my hand in a plastic bag and I put that in another plastic bag because I'm a bit scared. And I very quickly grab the nest, turn it inside out, and then put it in the freezer to kill them. And that seems to have worked so far. Touch wood, I haven't been stung.
It just seems odd that there's not something that predates on the wasp rather than
No. Well, they haven't found anything successful for Pollinators. It really is everyone's responsibility in a community to look out for paper wasp nests. They say that if you've got a protein source during the season, let me explain what the wasps do. They come back in the spring, queen wasps do, and they start building a nest. I don't quite understand how we get worker wasps, which are the rest of them, But once they've built a nest and they're using, the paper wasps are using little bits of timber or dry plant stems to make a paper wasp nest. They lay their eggs, and that's when the eggs hatch, they want to feed the wasp protein. So around about now, and so that's caterpillars. And they were introduced, a couple of them I think were introduced to control the cabbage white butterfly, but that was many years ago before they really did start doing homework on biocontrols. So then those wasps are looking for protein. That's when they keep killing the caterpillars, but sadly it's all caterpillars, not just cabbage whites. So they feed the wasps. Now round about now, we say late summer, the wasps are all adults, and that's when they transfer and look for nectar to build up their energy resources for the winter. So hopefully people will start seeing a change in the wasp's behaviour, and we'll start getting a few butterflies come through. Yeah. Any more questions? So anybody who would like a copy of that magazine, just please send me an email. You can go to our website using that QR code there, and you'll find an email address for me there. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience.
Thank you.